This is a very gracious audience. Thank you very much. I didn't have to say anything. I whispered, test 1, 2, and suddenly, I didn't even think you could hear me. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. I can feel the energy in the room, and we are going to roll with that. I'm Abby Gray Stonerock, the Director of Faculty and Professional Development for the Virginia Community College System. It has been an absolute pleasure to be with you over the course of the last 24 hours. I'm on about 4 hours of sleep, so give me a half a morning and a Mountain Dew and we'll be good to go. I want to just give you a couple of kind of protocol issues. We are going to briefly introduce our panelists this morning. As you know, they are going to be talking about some of the challenges and opportunities that are currently and have faced historically women in leadership positions. They're going to be looking at some of the gender issues that they've learned both personally as well as they have researched personally in their academic and professional careers. And they're also going to be talking about the relevance to that specifically to the community college environment and the corporate environment. We are very excited to see the turnout for this session. Some of the sessions have been more lightly, as you may have attended some that we're in the 10 to 15 range. This gives us a good pulse for next year because we are very interested in growing the topic of women in leadership. And not only in this format at New Horizons, but through our Leadership Academy structure, specifically the Faculty and Administrators Leadership Academy. Again, from a protocol perspective, we will be capturing this particular session and we'll be making it available after New Horizons as well. So feel free to share that information with others. We'll link it, we'll make it available. We'll also be using it as a pre-read for the Faculty and Administrators Leadership Academy next fall. And we'll have some of these individuals and other women in our system who are doing outstanding work to also address these issues. We're going to begin with Ms. Dorcas Helfont Browning, who is our State Board President. If you have not had a chance to meet Dorcas yet, she is a huge advocate of the Virginia Community College System, of the work that you are doing, specifically the research, teaching, learning, technology, academics, the work that you're doing in those areas. And of course, as our State Board President, she is an advocate for New Horizons as well. So we thank her for being here this morning, and we're very glad to have her on this panel. If you have not had a chance to meet the lady sitting here in the middle, that's Dr. Sharon Morrissey. Dr. Morrissey is our new Vice Chancellor of Academic Services and Research. Sharon has been with us for less than a year. She joined us last year just after New Horizons. We are thrilled to have her on board, bringing new and exciting ideas and information to the forefront of what we're doing. And last but not least, if you have not met Dr. Edna Bear-Colvane, she is the president, Tidewater Community College, and of course, kind of everybody knows Edna. She does great work and is a force to be reckoned with, and we love that about all of these ladies, which is the reason that they're here today. We're going to begin with a kickoff question for Dr. Colvane, specifically addressing the issue of what skills are needed to successfully navigate the educational enterprise. We're going to get some commentary from our guests, and then we'll take a pulse on our time. We'll open it up for a couple of pressing questions, if you have a couple of pressing questions, and then we'll step back again and continue with a number of other questions that we would like to get to during the time that we have. So Dr. Colvane, thank you for being here, and first question is for you.
Thank you, Abby, and thanks for inviting me to be part of this panel with two other awesome women. I don't consider myself an awesome woman, but I consider them as awesome women. I have to tell you a little bit of a story of my own journey. I think it's on, yeah. I came from Germany, and I'm a native of Germany, and never had any intention to become a college president. We don't have a community college system in Germany, so it was not even on my radar screen. But through a number of different ventures, I ended up at a community college. And the president there said to me, Edna, I want you to get into the Women's Leaders Program, which at the time was housed at Maricopa Community College. And I said, me? Why would I want to do that? I want to be a teacher. And he said, I think you have leadership potential. So he forced me to go to this conference. And there I found other women with very similar attitudes and some who said, yeah, I think I want to be a college president and everything. But the whole experience taught me and helped me to say, well, maybe this is something I really want to think about. But what was very profound was the assessment that the director of the program had us undertake, because she was convinced that unless you understood your weaknesses, you were not ever going to be good college material, leadership material. And so my answer to the question is, you have to be very candid with yourself on what your intention is. If you want to be a college president, or if you want to be in a senior leadership position, ask yourself the question first, why is it that I want to be there? And then ask yourself the question, what skills, what knowledge, what intangibles do I need to develop in order to be a good leader for that particular organization? Because at the end of the day, your vision and your character and your abilities are the ones that need to be matched with the culture and the needs of that particular college. And if there's a mismatch, and if your intentions are other than pure intentions, then it's not going to be a successful experience. So I think the first thing is be very, very strict with yourself and your self-assessment. Understand your intentions and why you want to be there, and then do your homework. I mean, I spent 10 years, I set myself a horizon of 10 years. I spent 9 years building my skills and getting myself into every opportunity for a workshop or a training session or experiences in order for me to say, I think I'm ready to apply for presidencies now. So it takes a lot of self-assessment and candor with yourself.
Now, Edna mentioned that she was a teacher, and I think that as you think about the pathway, especially if you're trying to climb the ladder to the presidency, it's a steep climb for anybody. There are more people who apply for the positions than get the positions. So you need to think about what do I need to do to be ready for that. I think that having a teaching background is good for becoming a community college president, because it gives you an understanding of the faculty. And the faculty are the reason that we're all there. The reason we're all here is because we have faculty who teach and students who learn. So having some knowledge of the teaching field is very helpful. So I run into people every now and then who didn't come up through a teaching pathway, but who take on responsibilities as an adjunct professor just to get that teaching experience. So I think that's very important in our field. I think a credential that a woman must have, that anyone must have, is an earned doctorate. So get on that track as fast as possible. There's so many other people who are competing who have that credential. So make sure that you establish the right credentials for yourself. Two other things that I think are very important in this pathway or navigating the educational enterprise. There are skills that you need, and there are attributes that you need. So some of the skills, you know all of these, and I think everybody in the room is aware that you've got to be an excellent communicator. You also have to be able to listen, and I would almost say listening is more important than communicating. Maybe they're equal, I don't know, but you have to be able to listen. The ability to see the big picture, the ability to manage, the ability to juggle multiple priorities. If you're a person who gets frustrated with having lots of things thrown at you, you might want to rethink whether you really want to pursue a high-level administrative position, because we are faced daily with multiple priorities. And often, one of the things that I always find astounding is that I can set my schedule for the day, and when I get to that day, it's not my schedule. My schedule is everybody else's schedule. So that's something you have to be able to adapt to. You also have to be able to prioritize. And you have to be able to shift quickly to adapt to new information or new situations. So you've got your priorities and you're checking off on your list, and then all of a sudden something else happens. And you have to shift, and you've got to be nimble. You have to be able to do that. And I think one of the most important skills that you must have is that you need to be data literate. You must be able to discern what data is good data, what data is bad data. You must be able to make data-informed decisions. You cannot be successful in today's educational enterprise without having data literacy. For attributes, I think obviously you have to have a keen interest in and passion for higher education. You must be a relentless consumer of what's happening in the field of higher education. In other words, reading all the journals, subscribing to blogs, subscribe to Inside Higher Ed, subscribe to Lumina daily reports, subscribe to all these things. And I'm going to tell you something about myself that is kind of embarrassing, but I get up every morning and read Inside Higher Ed and my Lumina reports for the day. That's how I start my day. And often I find fascinating examples there, that articles, research that I quickly want to share with my staff, because these are important trends that are occurring in higher education. You've got to stay on top of all of the research and all the emerging trends. If you want to be a community college president, you must like people. I think that goes, that goes without saying, but I have worked for a president who didn't like people. And it was not a very good working environment. He didn't last very long as president, but you've got to like people. And I think the other thing that I would say is you also must be selfless. The spotlight is not always on you. The spotlight is not always on Edna. She does the most fabulous job of putting her people in the spotlight. You've got to put the people around you in the spotlight. You're successful when they're successful. Their success is your success. And the last thing I will say is you need to know how to balance your professional time and your personal time. And that is the biggest challenge of all.
I'm in the private sector, but everything these two college presidents have said about moving up in leadership is across the board, no matter where you are and what you do. Being a leader is working with people and inspiring them to achieve, and being part of the culture and the vision of your organization, a positive atmosphere, and you do it because you care about your team and growing that team. Whether you're managing a department, managing a section, whether you're a chancellor, whatever role you play in academic or in my company, we want you to be cross-trained. We want you to seek new opportunities to train and to be part of our team, whether it's in technology or information. We want you to have a background as you move through so that you know you may not be good at it or great at it, but you will understand each function of our company. Education is no different. The best college presidents, who those have had a little experience about every department, because you've worked them as you've cut your credentials, and then when you're ready to lead, you have a better understanding of appreciation of the team that will shine and enable your institution to shine. From the outside, I will tell you that I look at the role of a college president, which many of you may aspire to be, because the average college president, according to Dr. Lee Stadt, is over 60 years old today. There's going to be a lot of openings, ladies. And guess what? We're not at the table representing half of the college president mix yet. Well, that's just a matter of growth, and you are the people growing there right now. But I will tell you, you must not only be that developer and representative within your organization, you must understand that the college president today is the partner in business, economic development, political activity, and you learn a balance. You have to have friends in all places who can count on you and count on the institution to support the taxpayers' dollars by accomplishment and readables and those numbers that support your mission and the work that you do. I'm excited to be with this group this morning and excited that VCCS has such competent women and men and others moving through this system today. You are the future of the system. I'm excited about your leadership potential.
Thank you, ladies. As you can see, we're just going to keep it rolling because we have a lot to learn today. In addition to some of the skills and attributes that we've asked these ladies to comment on this morning, we also asked them to talk for a moment with us about the identification process. And the question that we posed was, how do you identify at a grassroots level those who have both the potential and the desire to assume higher levels of responsibility? As we know, it's not always what we call the spring butt who jumps up for the position. That is the actual person who is needed for the position. So we were talking about, that's a military carryover, sorry about that. We call them spring butts in the Air Force. So we asked them to comment about that as they were putting their comments together. We said specifically, what do you look for? Where are you looking for these individuals? And how are you mentoring them to assure that they have the capabilities, the confidence, and the commitment to pursue higher levels of leadership and, perhaps more importantly, to serve this institution with distinction? So I'll turn it over to you.
All right. I look for the quiet ones in different meetings and so forth. I also look for those who have taken themselves out of their comfort zone. You know, if they come from student services and they're part of a task force or have come forward with a request, hey, I really would like to learn about this, because that tells me they're interested to broaden their horizon. And years ago when I did my self-assessment, I knew the areas that I needed to learn. And so I asked my presidents to put me in different positions and take me out of my comfort zone. And oftentimes what I see is men and women, they're very strong in a particular area, but they have no comprehension of the other sides of the house of our operation. You know, so they might be great student leaders, they might be great academic leaders, but they don't know anything about the finance, they don't know anything about the fundraising, they know nothing about, you know, the governance or any of those things. So I'm looking for somebody who has stepped forward to say, hey, I have an idea, does that help our college? And so it's, in meetings in particular, oftentimes the ones that jump up immediately, I don't think of them as the spring butts, but sometimes they want to be the first to get themselves heard. And when you look around the room, the ones who are oftentimes the listeners, and then they'll make a contribution to the conversation that is thoughtful, and it's oftentimes phrased in, well, how about if we think about it this way, instead of, well, we need to do this. And I remember at a college where I was, you know, one person in particular, it was always, well, why we can't do something? And I finally had to say to her, is there any time when you're going to say, well, I have concerns about it, but how about if we try something else? Turn it into a positive aspect. So what I look for in all of my endeavors is, you know, somebody that comes to my attention, or I'm in a meeting, or even at a conference, you know, somebody who is a quiet listener, but you can sense there is a sincere interest. And the sincerity is what I'm looking for, is what are their intentions? Again, you know, why are they wanting to make themselves heard in a setting? It's not because they want to control the conversation, it's because they want to make a contribution to solve an issue. And those are the kinds of things that I'm looking for, and then I'll oftentimes will follow up with them and, you know, try to get to know them a little bit better. So that's my avenue on how to identify aspiring leaders and how I then ultimately may decide to nurture them.
Yeah, I will ditto all of that and say you're looking for a person who not only has depth in an area, but breadth as well. And I like Edna's comments about trying to learn all aspects of the organization, even though your expertise may be in one particular area. I look for people who are preparing themselves, and I will say here, himself or herself, right? I don't just look for women, you know, it's any aspiring leader, but those people who are preparing themselves pursuing the higher degree, going to conferences. And it only takes, you can go to conferences with people and you can tell if they're really there because they want to learn, or if they're really there because, hey, we're out of town. We're going to have a good time now.
Right, yes.
So, you start watching people. I also look for people who are able to work cross-functionally in teams instead of people who prefer to work in isolation, because moving into higher level administrative positions requires you have to work collaboratively in teams, period, even if you're the president. So looking for people who have that skill and ability. I look for people who are more concerned about the greater good than about their own personal agenda.
Right.
So I guess I'll stop there, but looking for people who are desiring to grow, people who bring me solutions instead of just dumping problems. So, instead of just calling me and saying, Dr. Morrissey, we've got a problem, but coming and saying, okay, this has happened, but here's a way we might solve it. Come with a possible solution instead of just dumping problems on other people. So those are kind of the things that I look for.
In life, my mother had a statement. She said, people don't really care about what you know until they know how much you care. And that's a real good statement of leadership. And all the things that you're hearing is what I look for. I'm isolated in a desk running with my partners a company and depending on a great management team. And the role we've charged our management team with is to be talent scouts, to look at all of these aspects. And so my role is to debate them a question and make them feel uncomfortable sometimes so that they're out finding new solutions and new activities for our company. I found it really interesting. I sat in on the session about how to be a college president, and I think that Dr. Thompson-Stacy said something very important that applies to women and is a challenge. If you're going to grow in academia, it may not be at the institution that you are with.
That's correct.
So you have to be willing to be mobile. You have to be willing to understand that progress requires some relocation. Notice I didn't use the word change. So in terms of lining yourself of where you want to be in your academic career, whether it's a dean or a provost, whatever you need to do, the attitude of progress means that you might have to be mobile, and that is to be embraced as a new experience and wonderful journey in life, because those factors, if you possess these other factors, will enable you to fly in your chosen field.
May I make a follow-up comment on that? I've been able to participate in 2 presidential searches since I've come to Virginia. And what is very profound, and I also experienced it with applicants to TCC, we've started to call them the over-appliers, not the overachievers, the over-appliers, because you sometimes see the same names over and over, and they're the people that will apply for anything that sounds good. And especially when you get to that presidential level, believe me, it is a small world in the community colleges. Even though there are 1,200 of us, you develop a reputation that you're just going to throw your hat into the ring for any position that sounds good without, some intention. You're going to lose respect and you're not going to move forward. So be very, very careful, very intentional when you reach out. And take those kind of considerations into your thinking and into your approach. When I first started to apply, I applied for only 10 positions over a 1-year period. Very intentional in a particular region of the country, particular colleges. I never applied to another college in that same state because word gets around very quickly. And ultimately, you need to convince that search committee that you really want to be a part of that college. So if you send out 10 resumes for, or say 3 vacancies that were available here in Virginia, that local board is going to say, well, he or she, they just apply for anything. And so that's really, really important. Don't get that reputation because you're going to lose the respect and you're not moving forward.
Amen.
Yep.
Point. Thank you. Great point. Great point. We also in inviting these particular panelists, recognize that they are having a significant and a distinctive impact on not only their institutions, but also on the organizational cultures in which they operate so effectively. So one of the questions that we ask them to comment on is, what is it that you're doing? Specifically, what are you doing to identify, develop, encourage, advance, link, and support VCCS women, faculty, and staff for positions that they may aspire to in higher levels of administration? Because we know that they're doing something right, but we wanted to peel back the onion and find out what some of the secrets are.
You want to change the order?
Yeah, go ahead. That's I'm following
It's
now.
working.
Okay, it's working. All right. In our case, we just started a chapter of AAWCC, American Association of Women in Community Colleges, and we had 130 women join. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
That
You
is
know,
unbelievable.
we did not have a chapter. I've been on the AAWCC board for years, and so it's one way to begin to groom our internal leaders, and our focus right now is on the women. And so we created this chapter, and that's something that any of you, if you do not have an AAWCC chapter at your college, you can initiate that, and we'll be happy to help you get that started. The other thing is what used to be the National Institute for Leadership Development, which is the program I went through years ago as a leader, has now been dissolved, and it's been picked up by AAWCC. So now annually they have a women's leaders program. This year it's one more year at Salt Lake City Community College in June. And it's expensive, but it's for those who are really seriously ready for the next step. It may not be a presidency, but they want to get into a senior leadership position. And so we sent them to the Leaders Program, and it's a there's a 1 week program with a very structured curriculum, both skill building as well as the intangible attributes, a lot of self-assessment, and then there is a 1 year mentoring program that follows up. And typically one of the women will identify a president either from her own college or from another college as her mentor. And then through the course of that year, many times the women will use it to complete their doctoral dissertation or a senior project for their master's or PhD program. So I think that's one. And then internally at TCC, we made it one of the goals of our strategic plan is to develop professionally our staff and our faculty. So we have a task force that is led by, excuse me, 2 of the vice presidents with input from faculty and staff and some students to identify development opportunities for our staff. What can we do technology-wise, you know, because since our budgets are somewhat curtailed in the last couple of years, we try to do more with video streaming or sending only one employee to a training conference, and then ask them to bring back and train other trainers and other people and bring that information back. Whatever is available on through technology to build the programs and to build the skills. So we're just waiting now for the recommendations to come from that task force, and then we'll hopefully begin to implement. Ultimately, what we would like to create is to have and grow your own leadership program internally. So we're trying to touch a few points and ultimately roll it up into a much larger program. Right now, financially, we're not in that position, but we can build skills individually.
I'm getting to know the women in the Virginia Community College system and enjoying it very much. There are many great female leaders in the Academic and Student Services Council. I admire them greatly. They're going to soar. They're going to soar whether, you know, with or without me, they're going to soar because they're ready to take the next step. One of the things that I try to do is identify, just as I meet people, you know, and I will follow up, reach out and say, you know, really enjoyed meeting you. I would like to know what your career aspirations are. Let me know if I can help you. So I've had the opportunity now, as I get to know more and more people, to start having those conversations. One of the things that that I always try to do is find out, for the people who work for me, what are their aspirations. And I am actually mentoring someone who wants to become maybe a president. And what I realize is that I may mentor her to the, or she may develop to the point where I will lose her as an employee, but that's okay. You've got it. You've got to know that that's okay. If that's what we're all about. We're about educating and developing people, and we don't want to keep people in their place forever and ever because they're doing a really good job for me, and I don't want to lose them. I want to see that person grow. Right. So, that's part of the challenge, is that when you mentor and help people advance, you also have to acknowledge that one day they're going to soar, fly away, and be successful in a different role, and you will lose them as a key component of your team, but that's okay.
If I could just, before you speak, Dorcas, make a comment on that. When I agree to mentor somebody, I always ask them, are you okay if I tell you, point out to you with candor some of your weakness areas? You need to be prepared for that criticism and critique. And you also need to be prepared, and I tell them, do not expect that you're going to get a promotion out of this just because I mentor. Right. And I've actually discontinued mentorships where somebody has walked around and said, oh, I'm being mentored by the president, and I'm going to be the next vice president of such and such. That's not the right thing, and legally we can promise anyways, but that's oftentimes the fallacy of a mentor-mentee relationship, that the mentee may think, oh, just because the president has agreed to mentor me, I'm now all of a sudden going to be the next vice president, or I'm going to get this senior leadership position in a college. So you have to be prepared for that kind of candor from somebody who mentors you.
Leaders encourage people. Leaders recognize people. Leaders inspire people. And when you grow people, they can outgrow you, and that is the mark of excellent leadership on your part. I am so impressed as one of the 6 women who serve on the State Community College Board. We're all women with varying backgrounds, from education to corporate America on through. Each of us are excited about what we see at the top, the VCCS. The chancellor is walking the walk and talking the talk. If you look at leadership of the VCCS internally, it represents what each of you aspire to be at the table. Leading, offering your best talent to the success of education in the Commonwealth. Your institutions now face that challenge to ensure that you are developing that talent, that you're bringing people forward, and that you're serving the communities and look like the communities in which you serve. The things that I learned here, someone said, why are you going to these sessions? I said, because I come out so enriched as a business person. It helps me plan strategies for my own company and helps me talk to the business community about what's available at TCC, which I happen to reside in that area. And boy, am I excited about the mission of TCC. And this president knows it. And so you find that around the state you have many people who feel the same way. Your role is a leader in your community, and the community college system at the top represents the future in leadership.
Thank you. We have 2 more questions, and then we'd like to open it up for questions from you. We're going to try to do these in about 5 minutes or a little less. One of the important things that we often hear from participants in our leadership academies is that I know I need to develop skills in a certain area, but I'm just not sure how to do that and how to find those opportunities. So we ask our panelists to comment on the question, how did you do this? How did you hone your leadership skills in things like fundraising, strategic planning, media relations, and career mapping? Because we need to know what you did and how you did it so we can begin working on those areas as well. So you just briefly comment on that, then we'll move to our final question.
I think I touched upon it earlier. It's getting yourself to as many development opportunities as you possibly can. I mean, the VCCS conferences, there are so many great topics. There are local chapters of AAWCC or local chapters of AAUW that all speak to leadership and fundraising topics and everything, so just as Dr. Morrissey, she makes it her business to learn about all of these things. And so you need to be really on top of what goes on in our world of higher education. And if you see a conference or a seminar, try to get to it. When I was going there, I oftentimes paid for my own travel because it was important to me, and seek any other avenue, you know, to learn skills. I didn't know anything about accounting, so I enrolled in an accounting class because I wanted, I mean, I'd been writing grants for many, many years and I was successful at that, but I really wanted to understand how higher education accounting worked. So I took a class, you know, and oftentimes your college may pay for that. Seek any opportunity you possibly can. A real quick story on the fundraising. When I was president of Harrisburg Area Community College in Pennsylvania, we realized we needed to expand our healthcare programs and our early childhood education program. And so the board said, well, we need to raise $12 million for this campaign, and you're going to raise it. And I did everything possible to convince the board it wasn't in my job description and it wasn't in the advertisement, and found all kind of avenues. And the board chair said to me, she said, Edna, you're the spokesperson for the college, you're the champion for the college, and the only one who can tell the story of the college is you. So what I did is I learned everything I could about fundraising. I went to CRD, I went to CASE, to all kinds of conferences, and we raised the $12 million in record time. You know, so you have to get yourself out of that comfort zone and take that breath and say, oh, it's expected that I'm going to do it, and by all means I want to be successful at it, so I'm going to do whatever I can to build my skills in that area.
So when we become president, we have usually great, rich background in academic or student services, or sometimes coming from the business side, of administration. None of us know how to raise money. So fundraising is the #1 challenge for a new president. That is not a skill that anybody teaches you anywhere along your pathway. So when I became president, I was fortunate that the college next door, 30-some miles up the road, 40 miles up the road, was the community college in North Carolina that had the largest endowment of any community college in North Carolina. And I went to that president and I said, will you please mentor me? And that was where I learned the fundamentals of fundraising, going to workshops, conferences, etc. But he taught me about the people part of fundraising. That's so important. The friend-raising part of fundraising. So that's what I'll add. That's just the biggest challenge when you become a new president, is figuring out how to do the fundraising. It was not my comfort zone.
No matter what field you're in, investing in yourself, if you're going to grow as a leader, is critical. I've done the same thing these ladies has. I've gone to workshops, networks, joined groups where I could grow, learn, network, and learn new systems and grow my company. I started young in the business, and I realized when I was paying a CPA a lot of money that I didn't really understand what he was giving me. So what did? I enrolled in Tidewater Community College and took a semester of accounting, because I needed to understand as a business person what I was looking at, which is no different than you're hearing from these ladies on the functions of growing in academia. You have to have an appreciation for all the jobs in the club. But Virginia's doing something very unique, and it's a leadership issue that I hope you're engaged in supporting, and that's the re-engineering task force and what's happening. When a school is small, maybe it shouldn't have a full accounting and finance division because its mission is academia. Maybe that should be outsourced to another institution which can handle it without anyone knowing the difference. It's all invisible, it's all web-based. You're in a very exciting time for education, and particularly in the Commonwealth, with re-engineering, with cooperation, with the things that are happening. The role of a college leadership professional can be enhanced and multiplied in so many directions. It's an exciting time. I would hope that you embrace it, you participate, you work to make it better. Our goal as board members are to see that every student who enters the community college system has the equal opportunity to take any subject they want, to do it without the burden of heavy textbook costs, because $3,000 may be $30,000 if you have no money. So the work that you're doing and sharing across the platform is one of the most amazing projects that the Commonwealth can produce from this system. And you're part of it. You're part of our future. Thank you.
We have one final question that we'd like to get to, and I'm going to ask Dr. Morrissey to comment on this specifically because she did her dissertation work in this area. We asked the panelists, do you believe that gender plays a role in personal and organizational advancement, and if so, how? And she said, oh, I got this one.
Well, does gender play a role? Yes, thankfully. You know, there are gender differences in organizations, and these differences, I think, create two situations. One, they create a diverse and inclusive work environment, which is something we celebrate. But they also create differences in the way men and women advance in the higher education arena. There are tremendous opportunities for women in higher education today. We've talked about those in every role from department chair, dean, vice president, president. There are wonderful opportunities. You can be our board chair someday. You know, there are wonderful opportunities for women. I like to think that the three of us sitting here are somewhat trailblazers for you because it has not always been this way. It has not always been this way. I look out in this audience and I see a lot of young faces, and y'all are going to find it hard to believe that it has not always been this way, but that's the truth. But I like to think that because of our successes and challenges that there are pathways that the women in this room then can follow and achieve what we have achieved and soar past us. I wrote my dissertation on female community college presidents. This was in the early 2000s, and believe it or not, there were not very many female community college presidents at that time. In North Carolina, there were 6 out of 58. 5 of them agreed to participate in my dissertation research. 1 never communicated with me, so I don't know why she didn't want to participate. The women told me their stories of how they got to be presidents. The majority of them had not set the presidency as their career goal. They ended up just they didn't even plan to be vice presidents. They just ended up getting promoted and finally ended up in a situation and in a pathway that the next step was to go into the presidency. They had people coming to them and saying, you might as well become the next president of the college. And they're, you know, who, me? But once they were there, they felt that they had to work harder than their male counterparts. They felt that they had to work much harder than their male counterparts to prove that they could do the job, both internally at the college and, most importantly, externally in the community. Usually the internal audience accepted them as leaders and as presidents much more readily than the Chamber of Commerce, the local county government, you know, the police and sheriffs and all the different agencies and constituents that you work with out in the community. The other thing that I found in talking to these women is that the presidency had a negative impact on their personal lives, every single one of them. Most of the women ended up in divorce. Several had put off having children until it was too late. One woman sat in her office while I was interviewing her with tears streaming down her face because she had put off having children until it was too late for her to have a family. A lot has changed since 2003, thank goodness. We now live in a different world. So my advice to women today is set your goals. Set a pathway for yourself. And if that pathway is to the presidency, then do what Edna did and plan how you're going to get there. Plan how you're going to develop yourself and get to that goal. If your plan includes having a family, then work that into your pathway because you can do both. You can have a family and be a community college president. And I hope to see you all as community college presidents.
You're here.
That's great, thank you. A couple of quick things as we close. We only have about a minute left, and my apologies for not getting to your questions. Because this is being broadcast, we're going to re-strategize for just a moment and impose upon our panelists for about an additional 5 minutes, but out in the hallway. A couple of things I'd like to put on your radar. I have had the honor of joining the VCCS just, like I said, about a year ago. And prior to that, I had been with the Princeton Aspiring Leaders Program, so at that end of the continuum. And at the other end of the continuum, working with the FBI's Leadership Development Program for Director Mueller. that experience has been something that has in effect impacted the way we have redesigned the Faculty and Administrators Leadership Academy. I would like for you to encourage those who might be in this room and those who you might know would be a great candidate for that academy to put that on their president's radar and its presidential nomination. But it is a very valuable program in which we have conversations like this, and we dig in deep to see what we need to do. Some of our speakers, Greer and others, who are a part of that academy are in the room today. Dr. Morrissey mentioned if you're interested in doctoral work, don't forget the Chancellor's Faculty Fellowship Program. We can help you fund that and get your doctorate through the Office of Professional Development. Go to the website, look at it, do the research, and come to us with the questions. Let us figure out how we can help and enhance you. Let's give these ladies a very big round of applause. Two things I'd like to ask for you to do. Allow them to exit the room first, and we're going to ask them if they have time for about 5 minutes just to meet and greet in the hallway and to answer some of your pressing questions. However, please be aware that they too are trying to get to a next session. Also, we need you to fill out an evaluation on this session. We need to build some impetus for having more sessions like this. Ghazala has them in the back. Even if you have to take it as you're leaving the room and drop it off with her later, that's fine. Okay, thank you very much.